The Walt Disney Company has been the single most wholesome film studio for the last 95 years. Best known for their fairy tale animations, children's entertainment, and family fare. So when 21st Century Fox recently announced that they had accepted Disney's $71 billion bid to buy their entertainment assets and vast back catalogue of cinema, some began to wonder how they would deal with making movies based on some of Fox's more lucrative R-rated adult franchises, such as Deadpool, Kingsman, Alien, and Predator. Surely these franchises would become watered down and Disney-fied under the control of Disney, right? Well, not necessarily. What some may not know is that hidden behind all that happy magic, deep in the dark dungeons of Mickey's castle, is a somewhat darker, more adult side to the Walt Disney Company. Disney created Touchstone Pictures in 1984 and Hollywood Pictures in 1989 as avenues to release more adult-focused features with a wider latitude in the maturity of the subject matter and edge they could add to the humour. Additionally, in 1993, they acquired Miramax and their own subsidiary Dimension Films to add even edgier titles to their release schedules. I should differentiate that both Touchstone Pictures and Hollywood Pictures were actually Disney banners or brands, and not separate subsidiaries, film studios, or companies. They were Disney. Films made and distributed under these banners were wholly Disney productions, albeit released under a different brand in an effort to prevent tarnishing their wholesome family name. Miramax and Dimension, on the other hand, were a separate physical distribution and production entity. And while Disney didn't technically have a hand in making the Miramax movies, they did provide funding in most circumstances, and also had final say on which ones were greenlit for production or release and which weren't. Touchstone and Hollywood are now more or less defunct labels, and Miramax was sold by Disney back in 2010. However, across this 26-year period, the Walt Disney Company did in fact produce and or distribute more than 80 R-rated movies under these subsidiary labels and banners. Of these 80-odd movies, I have chosen a little over 20 of the crudest, rudest, most violent, most iconic, most non-Disney Disney movies of the bunch. Some of these you'll know very well, and most of them, I think you'll be surprised to learn, actually came out of the House of Mouse. Though you won't ever see the Disney name splashed across any of these, make no mistake that they do all have a place in Disney's vast back catalogue of films. At that, let's get into it. Here are 20 plus R-rated movies you didn't realise were actually Disney movies. I should say before we continue that when I refer to R-rated, I'm speaking in terms of domestic American classification and not international classification. For example, some of these movies will fall under not only the R18 plus rating, but the lesser M and MA 15 plus ratings in Australia. Likewise in the UK, some of these movies will be classified either 18 or 15. In 1986, Disney released its first R-rated picture, Down and Out in Beverly Hills, under the Touchstone banner. The movie received its rating for its depictions of sex, nudity, violence, and gore, and for featuring the use of alcohol, drug references, and strong language. It seems Disney went all out for their first R outing, and in doing so, even led to it becoming the first Disney picture to feature the F word. In 1987, Disney would follow up Down and Out with Good Morning Vietnam, which became the studio's first film based on a true story to receive the R rating. Set during the Vietnam War, the movie surprisingly didn't receive its rating due to the film's moderate war violence, but due to the strong language used by legendary comedian Robin Williams. The movie features a total of 16 F words and 26 uses of the S word and its variations. In 1990, Pretty Woman was released under the Touchstone banner, and while not as extreme as Down and Out, the movie, advertised as a modern fairy tale, featured Julia Roberts portraying a call girl. Certainly no Snow White.
Oh, God.
The movie earned an R rating for its sexual references, sex scenes, nudity, and mild language, and has gone on to become a rom-com classic. Also in 1990, Taking Care of Business was released under the Hollywood banner and was not only the banner's second feature, but also its first R-rated. The movie starred Jim Belushi, whose previous body of work had mostly consisted of R-rated pictures. It received its rating for sexual references, nudity, and strong language, and according to IMDb, contains an estimated 25 to 35 uses of the S-word minimum. In 1992, Disney released The Hand That Rocks the Cradle under the Hollywood banner. While the studio's previous R-rated releases had predominantly been risque comedies, Hand That Rocks the Cradle became Disney's first R-rated psychological thriller, and was perhaps their darkest and most mature release yet. The movie earned its rating for moderate violence and gore, language, strong terror themes, and its depiction of self-harm and sexual abuse. In 1993, Tombstone, based on the legendary gunfight at the OK Corral, was released under the Hollywood banner as one of Disney's least intense R-rated outings. It is, however, worth a mention for being their first R-rated action flick. The movie predominantly received its R rating due to its heavy focus on violence, as well as some mild language and sexual references. In 1994, Color of Night, quite possibly the studio's most provocative and risque movie ever, was released under the Hollywood banner. The erotic thriller received an R rating for strong sexuality, moderate sex scenes, and for the depiction of full frontal nudity from its two main stars, Bruce Willis and Jane March. The movie was also classified for its moderate violence and promiscuous language, becoming the first Disney movie to feature the C word. And while some of the future Miramax movies would include the word, this marks the only time a Disney-produced feature would use it. With Color of Night, Disney pushed the boundaries farther than they ever had before. Yet as a result, the movie was panned by critics and garnered the Worst Picture Razzie Award in 1995. It also went on to be known as one of the trashiest and worst movies of all time. Despite flopping at the box office, however, the movie, unsurprisingly, became one of the top 20 most rented movies in the US in 1995. And its strong and memorable depiction of sexuality led to its most infamous 4-minute-long sex scene being crowned as the best sex scene in film history by Maxim magazine in the year 2000. Oh Disney, we hardly knew thee. It seems 1994 was a controversial year for Disney, with the company additionally releasing Pulp Fiction as their first movie under Miramax. Pulp Fiction is famous for being the second film of writer-director Quentin Tarantino, a director whose style wouldn't immediately be synonymous with Disney. The movie received its R rating for perverse, strong language, strong graphic violence, drug use, and sexuality. Despite the movie not being as violent as most Tarantino pictures, it does take the cake for being the Disney movie with the most number of swears, with 265 uses of the F word. It was also the first Disney release to include racial language and slurs. Surprisingly, then Disney chairman Jeffrey Katzenberg had no issues with releasing the movie, as long as the scenes depicting drug use weren't too graphic. The movie was incredibly controversial on release, and even led to one shareholder dumping $45 million worth of Disney stock in disgust over the company releasing such garbage. Though it said that this didn't even have a negative effect on Disney's tradings. In 1995, Disney released Judge Dredd under the Hollywood Pictures banner. Other than his brief appearance in 2017's Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 and his role in Dimension Films' Spy Kids 2, Dredd is Sylvester Stallone's first and only Disney-produced starring feature, and one which has become known as one of his worst ever. The movie earned its R rating due to continuous violent action, though looking back at it now, the movie is so bad the violence is almost comedic. Dredd's R rating was infamously ill-received by the studio, who had wished to release it as a PG-13. Due to the nature of the film's violence, which the studio struggled to edit from the film in a suitable manner, the Motion Picture Association of America refused to downgrade its rating. Throughout the 1990s, Disney found success with a string of thematically similar R-rated action flicks, all helmed by illustrious film producer Jerry Bruckheimer, who would go on to produce 25 movies for the studio over 2 decades. These are amongst some of the first Bruckheimer produced for the company, and all of which gained their certification thanks to strong violence and language. Through Hollywood, Crimson Tide was released in 1995, as was The Rock in 1996. Through Touchstone, Con Air was released in 1997, which was perhaps the most violent and profane film of the lot, with incredibly graphic sequences resulting in a body count of 43 and around 30 F-words. And in 1998, Enemy of the State found release through the banner as well. While not quite R-rated, Jerry Bruckheimer would also go on to steer Pirates of the Caribbean: Curse of the Black Pearl towards becoming the first PG-13 Disney movie to be released as a Disney-branded picture and not a Touchstone or Hollywood-branded picture in 2003. In 1996, Ransom was released through Touchstone and became one of Disney's hardest R-rated action flicks. The movie contained extremely graphic bloody violence, strong themes, and incredibly strong language, with over 60 uses of the F-word and its variants. Funnily enough, this was Mel Gibson's first picture following his appearance in Disney's animated Pocahontas the previous year. In 1997, Face Off was released through the Touchstone banner and was co-produced with Paramount Pictures. It is thus one of very few movies Disney has co-produced with a competitor. Face Off earned its certification for strong violence, becoming one of the studio's most violent features to that point alongside Ransom, as well as for depictions of drug use and strong language, featuring around 30 uses of the F word and its variations. In the same year, sci-fi war flick Starship Troopers was also released through the Touchstone banner and similarly was co-produced with Sony Pictures. Much like Face Off, Starship Troopers earned its classification for strong violence, featuring the most severe gore ever depicted in a Disney film up to that point, with incredibly graphic war scenes. The movie also featured mild language and nudity. In the case of both movies, Disney was given international distribution rights, while their respective co-producers gained domestic US distribution rights. Over the period of almost 20 years that Disney owned Miramax, who was still operating as a separate company, the subsidiary released a number of highly controversial R-rated pictures. Kevin Smith's debut feature Clerks was released in 1994, Woody Allen's mighty Aphrodite in 1997, Ben Affleck and Matt Damon's breakout Good Will Hunting, which also starred Robin Williams and was complete with 150 F-words throughout, was also released in 1997. There was also the expletive-laden Full Frontal in 2002, as well as Martin Scorsese's highly violent Gangs of New York in the same year. Miramax would also help Polygram Entertainment with the marketing of Trainspotting in 1996 in an effort to sell it as a British pulp fiction. This bundle of movies, among others, all received R ratings for strong language, violence, and sexual references. And while I'm somewhat hesitant to call any of these Disney movies, they were greenlit and distributed by the company. However, there was a problem. Miramax's continual push for edgier movies and tendency to want more violence and more profanity began to fray their relationship with Disney. 2003's Bad Santa was released under Miramax and is said by some sources to be a movie that then Disney CEO Michael Eisner was disturbed by. The movie received its certification for strong pervasive language, strong sexual content, and moderate violence. On release, the movie was highly controversial for the way it painted childhood icon Santa Claus as a booze-drinking, potty-mouthed sex addict, and many groups lobbied to have the movie shut down. In one article, a Chicago Tribune journalist called for an apology from Eisner, imploring him to explain his new movie to children. Over the next 2 years, Disney and Miramax met boiling point with the release of Quentin Tarantino's next project, Kill Bill Volumes 1 and 2 in 2003 and 2004. The movies received their certification for strong bloody violence, language, sexual content, and drug use. The Kill Bill movies were so violent, in fact, that Disney insisted certain sequences needed to be toned down, as the immensity of the movie's blood and gore pushed it to an NC-17 rating, which Disney certainly were not comfortable with. Tarantino was hesitant to remove anything from his movie, and instead converted the most violent sequences into black and white, which somehow allowed the movie to pass the censors with an R rating. In one article, an anonymous top Disney source was quoted as saying that Michael Eisner and the Walt Disney Company had become concerned that Miramax was pushing the envelope too far with Kill Bill, saying that the movie had moved the studio so far away from Pinocchio and Bambi. Kill Bill had supposedly led to a deep reassessment of the situation and relationship with Miramax. The movies, along with Miramax's continually more controversial pictures, would eventually strain the relationship with Disney and lead Disney into shutting down film production units and relegating Miramax to a distribution-only label before selling it off in 2010. While Disney would go on to handle distribution of a number of R-rated features for Miramax until the sale, including 2005's graphic novel adaptation Sin City, they would only ever produce and release one more themselves. 2006's Apocalypto, a co-production with Mel Gibson's Icon Entertainment, was released in the US under the Touchstone banner, making the film the final R-rated production Disney has ever had a hand in producing, and the final R-rated feature to be released through Touchstone or Hollywood. And what a way to go out! Apocalypto received its controversial R rating for severe, frightening, and intense sequences of graphic violence and disturbing images, featuring some of the most gory and primordial violence ever put on film. The violence is so extreme, in fact, that on first release, many critics and audiences questioned why the movie wasn't given a higher NC-17 rating. After the release of Apocalypto, the direction of Disney's film production was changed, as the then newly appointed CEO Bob Iger actively began to push the company's focus towards the family franchise entertainment the company had become most well known for in the first place, with both Touchstone Pictures and Hollywood Pictures ceasing active production on all films soon after. With the Disney-Fox merger looming ever closer on the horizon, it's quite clear that similar business practices will be brought into play when it comes to the distribution of Fox titles. So to all you Deadpool fans out there, worry no more. Disney aren't exactly new to a little bit of adult fun.
I'm touching myself tonight.
If this is your first time viewing my channel, if you enjoyed this video and you'd like to see more like this in the future, then please hit that big old subscribe button up on your screen right now and hit that like button down below. Also, don't forget to check out my many social media accounts and please consider supporting me over on Patreon. Thanks for watching, everybody. I hope I'll see you all again soon. Until next time, take care and I hope you have a wonderful day.